Okay, so welcome to the Patient Voices on Unconventional Approaches to Atopic Dermatitis and TSW. Uh, our hosts today are the esteemed Dr. Peter Leo, who's an MD dermatologist, for those of you who may not know him, even though everybody seems to know him. He's a leading medical professional in the field with expertise in eczema and TSW. He was the founder of the Chicago Integrative Eczema Center, which is a resource for patients and families, for those of you who have not joined before, with people who have eczema and more recently TSW. And he's also been, as he mentioned, hosting these in-person and online information centers for years to help this community get the best of all information. And I am Olivia C. Friedman. I'm a traditional Chinese medicine herbalist, and I specialize in eczema and TSW as well. I treat patients all over the world, and Dr. Leo and I have had the chance to kind of combine forces and learn from each other, collaborate on patient treatments, and work on a few papers together. So he actually invited me to be part of the faculty of the Chicago Integrated Eczema Center a few years ago. So, excuse me, I'm a little bit sick, so bear with me. So today we're going to talk about patient voices on unconventional approaches to atopic dermatitis and TSW. And we're really going to be highlighting two primary unconventional approaches, and that's the ultra-pulse contact cold Eczema treatment, excuse me, also known as CAP, and secondly, the Aven Hydrotherapy Center. So to get the conversation started, and we're all going to kind of participate today, we've invited a few guests to help us out. The first one is Yaojing Ru, who's also known as Jing. She's the co-founder and director of Skin Solace in UK, which specializes in CAP, and that opened in 2023. She's also the creator of Decoding TSW, which is an online explanation of TSW and its stages. And also, she's a TSW warrior in her final stages after dealing with it for over 10 years. So, Jing, if you want to just raise your hand so everybody can see you.
Hi everyone.
Thanks for coming, Jing.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And then our second guest is Aliyah Mohammed. She's a longtime TSW warrior from Canada, and she's currently undergoing CAP in Bangkok under Purwat J, and he's better known as Jay. He's a Thai practitioner who has treated TSW for 16 years. Aliyah has accumulated a host of patient interviews, and she also is a big fan of Ayurvedic medicine. Our third guest is Jillian McCullough. She's also a longtime United States TSW warrior, and she not only moved to London to undergo CAP therapy, but she also spent a considerable amount of time at Aven Hydrotherapy Center in France. And then lastly, our fourth guest is Laura O'Halloran, and she's been suffering for what seems like a combination of eczema and TSW, and she's also been to Aven. So since we have a number of different guests here, I thought we would start with CAP, and then maybe what we can start with is like, what exactly is it? How does it work? And who's it best suited for? Want to just jump in and start talking?
Maybe I can explain a little bit more about the technology. So CAP is cold atmospheric plasma, and plasma is something that's quite difficult or quite abstract to understand. So it's known as the fourth state of matter. So if you have like solids, liquids, and gases, when you heat up a gas, it becomes an activated form of gas called plasma. So it's an ionized gas. And what it mainly does for TSW skin is regenerating. So TSW skin is proliferating at a very small capacity compared to healthy skin. And that is why we take a long time to recover. So what CAP does primarily for TSW skin is to increase the skin's proliferation rate so that your skin recovers quicker and regains its skin thickness quicker as well. It also does other functions like reduce hardened skin or elephant skin, and it can also cure infections, so fungal and bacterial infections.
Great. So you want to give us a little description of what the procedure is like and how often do you actually have to have it, or how long does it take to work?
So it starts with a weekly frequency. Because you're building up your proliferation rate, it does take time to build up that momentum. So I like to liken it to, like, let's say if you have a fractured bone or a sprained ankle and you're going to physiotherapy, that's the kind of support that you're giving the skin. We see the skin as a wound, so it's an injury caused by the topical steroids. So the weekly frequency helps to build up your proliferation rate. So let's say if your proliferation rate is like, let's say 60% compared to healthy skin, which is 100%, then every session you increase your proliferation rate by a small percentage, and then you build it up until about like 100% or full. Um, so it starts weekly, and then once you are stable at 100%, then you go down to every 2 weekly frequency. You maintain that for a period of time, and then you go down to every 3 weeks, 1 month, so on and so forth. So it's a gradual reduction process as your skin gains independence.
Great. Is there any kind of follow-up or any post-treatment maintenance that people have to do once they go through this?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, the treatment doesn't work alone. There's a whole range of protocols that we follow. So, there are so many things that affect TSW skin. So like irritants and allergens, that's a big one that we stress. So for example, because of the broken skin barrier, um, allergens and irritants that usually do not affect other types of skin will affect TSW skin. So for example, cleaning products, we take a very close look at anything that you're applying on the skin, any sort of ingredients that could be a trigger, we also try to remove. Um, and that's just one healing factor. The other ones could be other lifestyle-based factors, like, for example, stress, sleep, lack of rest can also affect your wound healing rate. So we always make sure that you make enough arrangements in your life such that you're not too bogged down by daily activities. So yeah, there's so many things that we look at. It's not just the machine that does the work. It's also 50% patient recovery or patient responsibility to recover.
Great. So Jillian and Aaliyah, do you want to jump in and kind of share with us what your experiences have been with CAP so far? Oh, Jillian, I
Oh,
think you're
Jillian, I
muted.
think you're.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I was just looking at the paper that Dr. Ian Miles did for the NIH, and there's a YouTube explanation of it. And he is differentiating TSW skin from eczema. And one of the things I really hadn't picked up on the first time that I watched that was that not only is there a difference in those two types of skin, but the day you stop steroids, your skin starts to change in a way and becomes more sensitive to these irritants, which is an interesting thing to think about because you wonder why was I not reacting this way when I was on steroids to everything? And it's not just the fact that you were on steroids, but now your skin is primed to be irritated by things that it wasn't irritated by before. So, like what Jean was saying, half of CAP treatment is knowing what your irritants are, and only half is the machine. And so people who even can't do CAP can benefit from finding out what their irritants are. And for me, having had eczema since I was a baby, I was put on like a non-dairy diet for like a week to see if I was sensitive to that. And that's what was causing my eczema. And they never found anything. So it was always just put up to genetics. And since going through TSW and CAP therapy, I've really become much more of a detective. And one of the things that I noticed was I always wondered why I had eczema on the fingers of my left hand. And I was brushing my teeth one day and I looked down and like lo and behold, the toothpaste is dripping down those fingers. And once I eliminated that irritant, it got much, much better. And so it wasn't TSW, it was eczema, but it's just a new way of thinking about things. And I think that's one of the really good benefits of going through this and recognizing that flares don't happen just out of nowhere. There's not an anniversary flare. You're always flaring in reaction to something. And whether it's stress, something internal or it's something external, it is a lot of work to figure out what it is, but it does give you a feeling of control, which is really important going through TSW because you feel so powerless so many times. I mean, you don't know why your body's acting this way. So, um, I guess to back up, I'll just say briefly, I've been in TSW for 6 years. I was on Dupixent the first year and a half, which I felt like just masked my symptoms and didn't do anything for my healing because when I went off of it, I went fully into TSW. I did NMT, which is no moisture therapy, for a couple of months, which was really, really difficult to do. I lost a lot of weight. And then I saw Dr. Friedman and really got a lot of benefit from traditional Chinese medicine. Um, Ultimately, I couldn't tolerate the teas, and so I kind of was at a plateau point, and that's when I decided I'd known about CAP for a couple of years, ever since Jing had posted about it, but that's when I pulled the trigger to go to the UK to do it. So that's my story.
And Jillian, you have an interesting story because you not only started this treatment, but you actually moved to London
Yeah.
to be there. So you've been there how long now?
No, I'm home now. I
Oh,
was
you
there for
are.
9 months. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And is that typical, Jing, for people to come from all over the world and stay in the UK in order to do this therapy?
Yes, because it's so limited, there are only 3 clinics in the world that do this for TSW. So unfortunately, people have had to move, which is the sad thing. I wish it was more around everywhere. So we have had people from the US, people from Dubai, mostly from Europe, who also fly in and out every week for the weekly treatment. So yeah, we have seen a lot of people around the world come for treatment.
Where's the third location? I know there's one in Bangkok, there's one UK. Where's the third one?
In Singapore.
Singapore. Okay, great.
Mhm.
Well, Leah, you want to tell us a little bit about your experience?
Sure. I'm just going to jump in and before I talk about myself, a couple of things to flag. So both Jillian and Jing talked about the 50% rule. Like I can't reiterate enough how much irritants and irritants can be like fresh paint in a new home. It can be like any stark chemicals, renovations that have just been done. That's what we talk about. Very often we limit fragrances. We just I hate to say it, but have learned how to take care of ourselves. And I talked about inflammation when we first joined the call. When you're on a 20-hour airport haul, airport to airport being some of the cleanest places in the world. I was in a new terminal too, Terminal S out of Bangkok, and brand new. I could see construction ongoing, and I'm sitting there for 3 hours waiting to board my flight. So there are multiple factors that contribute to the challenges once I hit the ground. So I know now, after doing this for over a year with CAP treatment, that I need 2 or 3 days to bring the inflammation down, to bring the discomfort down. But I know all the things I have to do when I do it so that I, create the safe space in my hotel room and I'm idle. So the CAP therapy is 50% of the work. The learning how to take care of yourself is a lot of it. And so the point that Jing makes about, you know, you don't have to do CAP necessarily. I guess it depends on the severity, and Jing, jump in, but the severity of your case. And in my case, when I got to Bangkok, I could not turn my neck and I could not extend my arms because of how severe my hardened skin was. And for people on the call, hardened skin is not even something I knew existed before I arrived in Bangkok. I started to see that my skin kind of looked a bit reptilian, and I didn't understand what was happening, predominantly on my arms and my neck and my jawline, which are my most compromised areas. Hardened skin is caused by stopping and starting steroid usage over many years. I've turned 40 just yesterday, and so I've been doing this since, I don't know, I was 2 years old, starting and stopping using the steroids, taking the creams, putting the paraffin moisturizers like Vaseline intensive care in the holes that I created from using the steroid creams. So I created this massive keratin dead skin layer. So imagine having to reverse that. When you stop using the steroids, all of that starts to present in this sort of thick, challenging way. And so when I got to Bangkok, Jay said to me, because we didn't have the amount of steroids that I had used at that time. He said, you will only be able to reverse your skin, and your skin will only become at an 80% level of healthy skin at the end of this. I'm still holding out and saying I'm going to get to 95%. I think we all want that. But at the end of the day, I think it's coming to terms with the fact that my skin will never look normal, but for me, my normal is I'm pretty happy with it because I can do things that I wasn't able to do when I got there. So I've done 50 treatments. I've used 4.6 kgs of steroids based on the understanding of the numbers that I have at a potency 3.4. So that's the middle of the road potency. And this will, because of the amount of steroids I've used, be a lifelong problem for me. So ultimately, top-ups or, more regular usage of the CAP device is something that I've had to think about and had to take action on once I learned the amount of steroids I used. So I would say that. And then I'd also say that, Jing, you've now helped probably, I don't know, you can give us the number of patients, but something that I've observed at the Bangkok clinic, it's like a hospital. You have people walking in that are the sickest people that you have ever seen. There was one woman I interviewed, Natalie from the US. Her and Jordan, I mean, these people have used, Natalie didn't have many complications besides bacterial infection. And I think she had a fungal, but she had so many open wounds that she had to wrap herself in a bed sheet on the aircraft prior to arriving in Bangkok. And then Jordan has used about 15 kgs of steroids. That's control skin. I'm sure everybody follows him. But when he got there, he thought it was about 7 kgs of steroids, but he's used a lot more. And on the aircraft, they said, could you please stop flaking, sir? Like, I mean, just I could go on, but I think I'll stop there. There's a lot to say about observations that you make and things that you learn about different people's cases. And so that's the goal of the YouTube channel with the cases. I think we have about 30 interviews. I have so many more that I need to edit and post. It's like a job, I tell you. But getting these online is for people like yourselves, academic professionals, to have a repository of cases so that one day when you're ready to research the efficacy of CAP treatment for helping heal topical steroid withdrawal, you have people that you can go to and talk to. Thank you.
Speaking of case studies, my nurse in our clinic is working on writing a TSW article in the nursing journal. So she's using some of our cases in the clinic and also hoping to talk about CAP therapy as an option in one of these journals. So she has been reaching out to various doctors who are happy to collaborate on this. So if there's anyone who is willing to take a look at it or even peer review the journal or what we've written, then that would be so helpful.
And I'll just say one more thing about your website, Jing. Like, you read it and you read it and you read it, and every time you go back and read it, there's 5 more things that I missed the first time. And when you go through the process, you're also like, it just
learning.
becomes so much more real. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think every time I go back to what Jay says as well, I learn more. Even when the clinic has been open for 3 years now, I'm still learning more each time because everyone is different. They come back with different histories, there are different complications. Everyone has a different lifestyle that also affects their skin differently. So we learn various techniques along the way about how to cope better, what are different things we could implement. Whatever that's on that website as well. I mean, there's so much more to add every single year.
Yeah. Do you find that people at certain points of the condition actually are more receptive to the treatment, or is it just everybody who comes in is able to respond in the same way? I know everybody probably responds differently, but in general, do you see any sort of trends?
I find that the most dramatic difference are people who come in more poorly, just because the skin is super wounded, and when the skin starts to scab over and heal, the difference is quite dramatic. Whereas people who are later on in their journey and looking to finish that 5% of their healing, the treatment takes a bit longer to see any effect, just because the skin is already quite at a good stage. And we also don't know how much of the atrophy we can really heal by that time. So I would say those who are usually between 6 months to a couple of years of TSW, within that time frame, they are quite prime for the treatment, I would say, because firstly, mentally, they already understand what TSW is. Whereas those who are early on, they tend to be more panicked. They do not really understand the condition very well. So even if we gave them the protocols, they may not be fully able to follow that because they're struggling. They're still learning how to cope with the discomfort and the pain and the whole mental aspect of the condition. And those who are later on in their journeys, like maybe past 5 years or even 8-10 years, I find that mentally as well it's hard to get over certain roadblocks. So for example, their beliefs about the condition, either the hope for their recovery can be quite poor, or they have very strong beliefs that okay, certain things are causing them to flare, which may not be accurate. And so overcoming those mental roadblocks can be quite difficult, and we do need them to reframe how they think about their condition so that they can help themselves. Whereas those, between 6 months to a couple of years or even 3 years, they're kind of in that point where they're still hopeful and they are willing to see their condition in a different way, or it's easier for them to absorb the information and implement it.
One word that comes up often in the interviews is desperation. Like they're just desperate to try anything. They've tried immunos, they've tried biologics, they've thrown the towel in on that because if you have complications like bacterial, fungal, hardened skin, those wonderful drugs are not going to support your healing. I tried cyclosporin for almost a year based on Dr. Rappaport's recommendation and didn't go very well. So I think you're just soured to everything, and then your last resort is choosing CAP. And then the other thing is, if you've used a lot of steroids at a higher potency, you have a very difficult case. And so the pain is, I'm not going to say worse than someone that's used less than a kg because it all sucks. But the severity of your case is more challenging. And so, yeah, the one thing too is with CAP, it's 50%. If you've used just a couple 100 grams, maybe there's a way with irritants at home to just manage getting through TSW. So that blanket statement of time heals doesn't help. Doesn't help because it's actually based on how much steroids you've used.
Yeah, there are actually some cases where their steroid use is so mild or so little that sometimes I even turn them away as patients because the treatment is expensive. There's a lot of commitment to come down to the clinic, especially if they live far away. And when I look at their photos, I can immediately tell that's a fungal infection or a flare or it's a bacterial infection, which they mistake for just ooze. So we also do advice calls for people who don't or can't access CAP at the moment. And from just simple changes in irritants, moisturizer withdrawal, identifying infections properly, and identifying any other flare factors such as stress or lack of rest, or even a mental health condition, just pinpointing those issues and removing those can already make a big difference in your recovery. So through the advice calls alone, they can already see good healing.
That's such a big point because that happens too at the Bangkok clinic where never once is Jay like, yeah, you must come. He gives you, probably emailed with him. I found out about this in December of 2022 through Marriott, who made the YouTube channel with the videos. And I didn't arrive there until May 2023. May 20th was my first treatment. And I had a second really bad flare in between, and that was my rock bottom. So I said, I had emailed with him, and I thought, he'll be slow to respond. The guy is so quick and so on it. And anyways, you could talk about him too for a while. But yeah, just the response was great. And then eventually I made the decision to go. So yeah, he'll never tell you must come, your case is severe. He'll give you all the recommendations for what to do at home. And then until you make that choice, you choose to go.
One of the things that I got from Aaliyah was the idea of getting an air quality indicator. And that's just been a game changer for me because now I'll start to get itchy and I'm like, I'm in a chicken restaurant and obviously the
Fumes.
kitchen is polluting the whole area. Even using the gas range at home, I'm really careful to put the vent on and open the windows, but a lot of times I can tell immediately there's something in the air because I'll start to get itchy and I'll check my indicator and sure enough. So that's, a clue to go in and take a shower or get out of that environment. And anything that you can do to give yourself that power to know what your irritants are and feel like you have some control of the situation is really helpful for your mental well-being too, because you don't want to feel like it's totally unpredictable and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah,
No,
like
that's a
the
really
one
good
thing we
point.
all say in Bangkok, and I have to say that community, it's so cool because you walk in there, you burst into tears because first of all, you're with people that look and feel like you, and it's completely relatable. But are you waking up red in the morning? That is like the number one question. And if you are waking up red, you have a problem. You have a problem in your bed. Maybe it's your pillowcase, maybe it's your pillows, maybe it's your linens, maybe there's a fragrance in there. Like you've got to be really minimalist and then slowly add things in. And if you start to feel discomfort, like make changes in your life. And oh,
Uh,
you also
Go ahead.
feel it. Like, to Jillian's point, you've now removed all these things, and then your body has the ability to feel what's happening. I mean, I never had those sensations before I started topical steroid withdrawal and then my knowledge through CAP. I never could feel anything. But now you know what an allergen is, you know what an irritant is, and there's a big difference between how they both present. And you're just able to know. You know what a flare feels like before it even starts.
And you could differentiate what is actual eczema and what's TSW. And like I said on my hand, what's just contact dermatitis, and that, it was an irritant that I now brush my teeth with gloves on. Like I do everything else with gloves on. Why not do that with my gloves on too? So,
You're talking about dyshydronic
yeah.
eczema, yeah, yeah. And I mean, that could be caused by chocolate or metals or, so anyways, lots of learning.
Yeah.
Can we just talk a little bit about cost? I know that this is a little cost prohibitive for most people because they do have to move there. But if they actually do live by one of these locations, like what is the actual cost that's required to do something like this? And then my follow-up question would be, I know that a lot of people have talked about finding these wands on Amazon and being able to do this at home. Can you speak to that as well? And then we'll move on to the hydrotherapy as the next topic, okay?
I think the cost is quite different between Bangkok and UK. I think I can let Aaliyah speak about the Bangkok cost. It's probably a lot different because of, every country has different costs. In the UK, an hour is £180. So it depends on how long your treatment session is as well. So let's say if it's just the face, it's typically only 15 minutes, and that is what's a quarter of 180. Yeah, so it goes by time. So if you have, let's say, an hour's worth of treatment, which usually typically covers about half the body, then that's about £180. What was the second question?
Oh, a lot of people have been talking about finding these cat wands on
I see.
Amazon. And so I just wanted to, see what your thoughts were on that. And
Do you mind? I'm so sorry to jump in. I know Laura has to jump off in a second. Do you think we could give her just a chance? We're about 30 minutes in. We only have about 30 minutes left, and I think she has to leave a little early. Could she maybe just talk for a few minutes and then
Of
she can go
course.
and then we can go back to the cap as well?
sure,
Yeah, maybe
sorry
we
about
should
that. I
switch
didn't realize
to.
you had a time frame. Go ahead, Laura. Why
Thank
don't we
you.
jump to the hydrotherapy? And then Laura, you can tell us a little bit about your experience. And then as Dr. Leo said, we'll jump back.
I'm so sorry. Thank you, everyone. I have grandma's 95th birthday that we have to jump in the car to not be late to. So thank you so much. Um, First of all, it's so nice to meet everyone. There's Jing. I have been following your story for a long time, so this is
Oh.
like it's like celebrity, like a celebrity to me, and lots of other names that I recognize. So it's just really nice to see everyone's face and to hear from everyone. It's such a wonderful community. So just, I guess I'll give a quick overview of my experience at Aven. So, if that's okay with everyone, it's
Yeah.
a hydrotherapy center. So it's And apologies if I'm explaining things that people already know, but it's a medical treatment center that's built on top of a natural thermal spring. And over many, many years, they've discovered that there are benefits to the natural water. So there's specific mineral content and ratios, as well as specific bacteria that with prolonged exposure, they do 3-week treatment sessions at a time, are repopulate your skin's microflora to some degree, and can also help repopulate the gut microflora is what I've read. So basically it's a 3-week treatment program that I was very incredibly lucky to attend thanks to Dr. Leo's work and advocacy. So it's a few hours every day, and you get different types of hydro treatments, baths, and water compresses, and underwater massage where they press the water into you, facial spray, scalp spray. What am I missing? And then a just full body shower and spray. So it's a lot of different, basically just ways to incorporate the water into your skin. And then you're also supposed to drink, the goal is about 3 liters of the water a day. And that's really all it is. And then it's a lot of education about hygiene and using their products that do contain the water also, to kind of reinforce the hydrotherapy. So it's really interesting to me that it's just totally natural. But for me, I think it interestingly got worse while I was there, which they told me to expect. So they call it the thermal crisis, where you flare during the middle of the session. And I pretty much got better right when I got there, and then flared for weeks 2 and 3. And then they said the maximum benefit is usually 3 to 4 months out, which I'm coming up on right now. So definitely have slowly improved over that time, which is really great. I was able to come off. I have a little bit of an interesting course where I was off of steroids for about 4 years, got pregnant, have been on lots of different immunosuppressants during that time while off steroids. Then during pregnancy, got pretty severe again, and ended up using a little bit to survive, a little bit of the Dr. Aaron regimen steroids, which certainly helped control things to get me through pregnancy while I couldn't be on some heavier medications. But then went to the hydrotherapy center right postpartum when things got a little bit rough again, and I was able to get off the Dr. Aaron steroid cream again within the first few days, or first 5 days, I think, and didn't really have a significant rebound flare except for that thermal crisis flare while I was there. So, and I've been off the steroids now, and generally slowly getting better since I left the treatment center. So they do recommend 3 years in a row for 3 weeks at a time. So I'm planning to go back probably in May. But that's just a little recap of my experience there. It was really wonderful to meet the people there and to meet the community. And yeah, I'm excited to continue my time there next year.
Olivia, I think you're muted, Olivia.
Yeah. It looks like Hiba has a question.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Just wondering how long your stay is at the Aven Thermal Center, and what the cost is like.
Yeah, so the stay is 3 weeks. Although I think there is an option for people to do shorter stays as well, but 3 weeks for 3 consecutive years is like the recommended treatment course. And I was very lucky to be a sponsored patient, so I didn't have to pay, but I will pay this coming time. And I think the treatment itself is not exorbitant. It's around, I want to say around $1,000 US. And then of course the stay and the travel.
Thank you very much.
And are you actually staying at that place and they have accommodations for you and all that? Or are you making accommodations to be around the area?
They have a hotel on site, which is really lovely. And then they also have a couple little like apartments just down the street, which is where I stayed. Like little simple apartments.
If I could jump in,
Please do.
when I went last year, I stayed in their apartments. And then this year when I went, I stayed in, there's another like condo unit that I actually would highly recommend. And you can stay in the village as well. The hotel, I think, is pretty expensive. It's with, I believe it's all inclusive with the meals. It's kind of like a family style meals, I think, every night. And as she was saying, the treatment is not super expensive. And staying there is not super expensive either. It is a place that the French government sends people suffering from eczema to. So it's a pretty remote location. You have to be prepared for not a lot going on there while you're there. So
You recommend having a car so you can get away a little
I
bit?
definitely recommend having a car. Yes. Yes.
Okay. And then, Dr. Leo, do you want to just let everyone know where this is? Because I know you were there as well.
Yes, so there are a few of these in France, in other parts of Europe as well. But this one is located in Aven, France, which is near Montpellier, so kind of the south part of France. It's very beautiful. It's a very rustic area, and there's no doubt. I mean, I think that's part of the healing. You remove, we get people out of their environment, out of their home, out of the cities, out of the pollution, and you're basically in the forest every day, and you're eating food that I think is higher quality than what we have, especially in the US. Our food is pretty low quality. So I think in France, food is much more it's taken much more seriously. The rules are much stricter about what can be in the foods and preservatives. So I do feel like that's part of the whole thing. But there are other ones. There's La Roche-Posay, which is further north in France. There's actually Vichy has a hydrotherapy center as well. And what's interesting is if you're a French citizen, all of these are part of your insurance. It's for eczema and psoriasis and for other conditions. Kids with epidermolysis bullosa and other problems can come, and they get 3 full weeks per year that are totally covered. It's part of their insurance, which is amazing. And for people outside of France, it's not too bad. It's around $1,000 for the entire 3 weeks of treatment. So it's not terrible. And then if you find a decent price on an Airbnb or a rental for a short term, I mean, you really can do the whole thing for not much more than like a regular European vacation. So I think they're interested in opening it up more. To people outside of the US. And, I think it's great. We've been talking about what can we bring to the US? Can we do smaller versions of it that would be a little bit more accessible? Because most people, I mean, again, even if you can afford the money, you still have to go to France for 3 weeks. And that's really hard. And we always joke, Americans, a lot of times our vacation is a weekend or 1 week. The Europeans are much more accustomed to taking a longer vacation, but many Americans can't. I know it's just tough, but it is a really nice thing. And of course, as you can tell, it doesn't cure anybody, I think, completely. But I do think it helps most people a little bit, which is really nice. And it certainly is a different approach, which I really appreciate for patients where I feel like I'm kind of stuck. I really like having this. And I think it like CAP, it's something that is, we heard that word desperation, where we're sort of running out of options. I think it's a really nice option for some people to at least consider.
And it's so interesting now that there's all this focus on the gut microbiome and the skin microbiome, that this is like a way to kind of rebalance things. And I have to tell a really funny story real quick, that there aren't a lot of Americans who go here. And I went last year for 3 weeks, and I was here in May for 10 days, or June. And I heard these Americans speaking, and as they were getting on the elevator, and I turned around and I thought, that's the famous Dr. Leo. And I chased him down like a Taylor Swift groupie, and just so I could talk to him. And he was very, very lovely in person. So it was a thrill for me to meet a celebrity.
That's awesome. We have a couple questions in the chat. Dr. Leo, one of the patients are interested in knowing if the Aven Zeracalm oil is actually from the same people as the Aven Thermal Spa.
It is. It definitely is. So all of their products, and again, I consult with them sometimes. I have no interest in the company. I don't make any money from their products or from sending people. So I really do genuinely like their stuff. But yes, all their products do contain the spring water. So part of the thing is we got to tour, and Laura had to jump off, so she's not online with us. But part of the tour, you get to go see where they put everything together. So they actually are using the water to put in each of their products. So you get a little bit of that in all of their products. One of their moisturizers, the Zeracalm, is my favorite because it has no preservatives. They actually use a sterile packaging with a one-way valve. So I really like that. Very few companies, or a couple that do it, but very few have adopted that, because I think it's really expensive to have a sterile way to do it. But It's really nice. And then at La Roche-Posay, similarly, some of their products will have the water, but not all. So they're a little bit more, La Roche is a little bit more like a hospital. It's much bigger, and they treat more people from all over the world. And I've never been to the Vichy one, but I hear it's also very nice. So they're all options that people can go. There was a question in the chat too. It's about $1,000. No, that doesn't cover the food or accommodations. That's just the treatment. But if you live in the town and you rent an Airbnb, there's some apparently really inexpensive ways, and food in general is can be pretty cheap if you're shopping. There's a little local grocery store, so you could actually be pretty frugal. And one of the families I had sent a couple of years ago, they told me that for their family of four, the entire, all things included, everything put together at the end was under $3,000 for 3 full weeks. And they had a great time. They really enjoyed going to France. For parts of it too, they would take little day trips around. So they said a normal vacation would have only been slightly less expensive when that included airfare, food, hotel, everything. So that seems reasonable for maybe for some families potentially.
I think Mo has a question. If you want to take yourself off mute, thank you. For some reason, we can't hear you, Mo. Well, do you want to put your question in the chat and then I can read it out? Okay, while we're waiting for you to type that out, why don't we go to this one? Do you know if it's free for EU citizens with European medical card or just French citizens? That would be for the event.
Yes, I don't know. I could try to find out though. And I put the link so you could reach out to them directly. And I'm putting in the La Roche-Posay link as well so you guys can reach out. But yeah, I'm not sure. It might be part of the European system, and maybe they would make it free for you there too.
Okay. Okay. Does anybody have any more questions about event? Or is there anything else that Jillian you want to share about event or your experience of it?
Yeah, just to explain that it's not like what we would consider a spa in America. You're not going to be soaking in, this thermal spring for hours at a time or getting massages. I mean, it's very prescribed what you're doing. You go in, you have your shower, you go in and you have your bath with the jets, and then you either have the compresses or somebody is literally hosing you down with the water. So if you're really efficient, if you go early in the morning, if you ask for an early morning appointment, you're out of there in an hour and a half. So just, you do have a lot of free time. So I just want to make sure that people don't think that it's like what we think of as a spa.
That's a really good point. Okay, if we don't have any more questions about event, we do have a question about the CAP treatment. Somebody had mentioned or wanted to know how to get access to the advice line.
On our clinic website, I think under Contact Us, there should be a link to, it's like a form. You can put in your name and your contact details and what you want advice on. And that's where you can book a call. So it goes through our emails and we will see it and book you in accordingly. So go on our website. I can type the website link in the chat.
That'd be great. Thank you. And then if we want to go back to our question a little while ago about the cost of doing this, as well as what your thoughts are about the wand that's available on Amazon.
So the cost is really tailored to each person. So typically when you get a spot for treatment you're on the waiting list, we will contact you and I would do an assessment of your skin. So we do it by pictures. So you send pictures of all your affected areas. I assign time for each area that you need treatment for, and I add up that time, and then the cost goes by per hour. So we do a calculation for you in that like video call assessment. And if you are moving from somewhere else, then it depends on what kind of accommodation you look at. or if you need to, get a plane over, then it's just plane tickets. In terms of the CAT machines, they are quite different from aesthetic CAT machines that are used in aesthetic treatments that are like beauty salons. Firstly, the power is calibrated to deal with wounded skin. So you need a very high power to get the level of skin regeneration that you need for TSW. The second one is it's contact CAT rather than a jet. So most aesthetic clinics, they do it where the handpiece is kind of like hovering around over the skin, and it kind of like zaps at the skin almost like electricity or like lightning. So the handpiece is hovering, and that's called non-contact plasma. So contact plasma that we have in our clinics, literally the handpiece touches the skin, and the plasma is directly delivered to the skin, and that's what makes it also a bit safer for TSW skin. So rather than having zaps on the skin, which can be quite painful, especially on wounds, we have it directly on the skin. So it's less painful as well. So yeah, I don't think all CAT machines are suitable for TSW skin.
It also kills fungal, right, Jing? Which is a big one.
It does. I think all CAT kills fungal, but you kind of have to do it in the right way as well. So like, let's say if you're doing a hovering handpiece, it's hard to actually cover all the area. Whereas if you're doing a contact handpiece, you know definitely that the plasma is killing the fungal and bacteria on all that surface area that you're touching.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Does anybody have any other questions that they want to ask or things that they're curious about learning more about?
Or maybe Aliyah can share the cost in Bangkok, because it's quite different, isn't it? Yeah.
It is different, and I, rightfully so. These are two completely different geographies. I mean, in the UK, it's the cost of doing business is higher. And I think the goal, of course, from a J perspective, and Jing, you know this too, it's just to try to keep the costs as even as possible. But I mean, it's not always quite that way. There is a clinic opening in Bali by two patients that were in Bangkok and realized that like they were there around the same time as me, and one of the women has roots in Indonesian roots, and so she's kind of like going home from the Netherlands. So they're opening a clinic there, and I'm not sure when that will be up and running, but I interviewed them a few weeks ago when I went to Bali, and so that's an option as well. So in terms of treatment, I did 2 hours because I had full body TSW, which I just now have sort of chest up, hardened skin, and TSW skin, and my arms are the areas I mostly treat. Scalp too, just because it's actually really relaxing, and behind the knees. Those fold areas are really annoying and problematic. So I spend about 190 US for 2 hours. And I've done 50 treatments. So you can do the math. And then, of course, and Jing and Jillian, you know this, the CJ serum is pretty integral. I found that it's been a really key piece in my healing because of the supporting the proliferation of the broken skin. So, yeah.
Great. I think we have a question from Hasid.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Jing, do you have only one branch in the UK? Is that the one in Southampton?
Yes, it's only one branch. It's in Winchester. So from London, we are about an hour by train. And if you're coming from Southampton, it's about 15 minutes by train.
Okay. And is this something that's suitable for children? Like, do you have a minimum age, what they need to be?
To be fair, it's safe for children, even babies. But because of our insurance in the UK, it's a lot stricter in terms of like health and safety. So we do not treat anyone who's under like 18 and definitely not under 16. So yeah, unfortunately, we don't do children. Yeah, but I have done many advice calls for children. So if you do need help with your child and TSW, then that's where I can help.
Yeah, I think it's for us to even identify, is it TSW? I think, yeah, that advice call would be a great thing.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely. It can be confusing.
Thank you.
I have a question. Hello?
Go right ahead.
Hi.
Ah.
Hi. for both of the doctors, is so thermal water like Aven or Vichy. I mean, we all know that it's a relaxing thing to do. Even if you don't have TSW, that's a nice thing to do. But does it actually have efficacy for us?
I would say we don't know, right? I mean, most of the research on TSW is in its infancy. Like we just don't know. And I was going to ask Jing. She says she can tell TSW from atopic derm, but an international panel of dermatologists, we could not agree on how to do this, and we continue to argue about it. So I would love to see if there are some pearls you can tell me, because I think there is a lot of overlap, and it has been impossible to get our colleagues who are, very seasoned, many people practicing 20, 30 years of pure dermatology all over the world to agree on the specific differences and how we can reliably call them out. But the truth is, we just don't know. We know the thermal waters are very soothing for the skin. We know there's different types of probiotics in the water, the bacteria that could be helpful, that the low levels of minerals seem to be anti-inflammatory. And there are some studies, real evidence that show people do get better. Even when they blind the groups, they can actually tell who's improved. But I would say that in general, the effect is fairly modest. This is not going to be something that's going to turn off your eczema completely. And I actually think Laura's a good example of that. Somebody who saw a nice improvement after 3 weeks, but certainly isn't cured. And that's why I'm always curious, and I want to know, but I always want to keep it in perspective, because we are desperate for new things. And I feel like patients will sometimes say, you know what, I'm going to fly across the world. I'm going to spend, I don't care what it takes. I'll take out a loan, but I want to know what we're getting into, because I inherit many patients who have tried different treatments over the years and have been pretty disappointed when they've spent time and money and hope, and they say, boy, that didn't help. So I'm always learning, trying to learn more and keep growing with it, because it's still something we don't know a lot about.
I would agree with that 100%. I think everybody, like Dr. Leo said and everybody else has said so far, is that desperation can lead us to do a lot of different things, but we really have to consider, all of the different things, all of our different circumstances. And, money is not a small thing when it comes to any of these things. So we really have to think, a lot about whether or not this makes sense for us. But, we wanted to have this conversation today to at least talk about what are all the different things that are out there, so that people are aware of them. And a lot of questions have come up about this, just because everyone's, been talking about it on TikTok and Facebook and whatnot. So we just wanted to provide, some amount of information so that people can learn a little bit more, and specifically from people who have gone, and also people who actually, are running these places. So, Mo, you had a question, and hopefully you can come on this time.
Hi, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, great.
Perfect. So good afternoon to everyone. I just wanted to personally thank Dr. Leo. He probably doesn't remember me, but I went to his office as a referral from Dr. David Miller from Ohio. And my daughter had been suffering with eczema for about 6 years. And that one visit, that first visit with Dr. Leo, was a game changer. He recommended the event products, he recommended the Blue Indigo, and another regimen that we've been doing on a daily basis. And thankfully, my daughter has not had a flare up since. So I am very, very grateful. And I just think he was an angel that got sent our way. So thank you.
Well, thank you for the kind words. I'm so glad she's doing well.
I think that's just really beautiful, because I think we're just all looking for validation. And both of these professionals on here give it to us, and we need that. So thank you.
You are welcome. Maureen had a question. Actually, she sent that directly to me, but I'm going to say it out loud. And I'm not sure that we can answer this question, but she was wondering what was Dr. Miles's thoughts on both these different treatments. And I don't know that I know Dr. Miles that well to know for sure. And I don't know if Dr. Leo has any answers for that. I don't know if he's come out publicly on either one of them, so I'm not sure that we can answer that question. But if you know anything, feel free to share.
Yeah, no, I'll ask him when I see him. I've seen him a few times this year already, and we've chatted a lot. I don't know if he has any specific opinions, but I'll definitely run it by him. I've been working on kind of a review article for CAPS so we could sort of see what's out in the literature. So far, there's not much. It is mostly wound care, but I think it'll be good to bring more awareness just to the mechanism, the science. And I know, Jing, that a lot of the centers that are doing it, they modified them. So that makes our job even tougher because, we sort of say, well, this is what's been published, but it may be different than these because the machines are a little bit different. But at least we can kind of get the idea out there that this is how it might work and why it may be of interest to look into. There's a question from Maureen about the defensin probiotic spray. So that actually is the work of Dr. Ian Miles. So his project at the National Institutes for Health was making a probiotic spray called Roseamonas. And Roseamonas is a bacteria that's seen on healthy skin, but not always seen on patients with atopic dermatitis on their skin. So they found that when they added this to patients with atopic derm, they actually did better. And a big company bought the rights to this and tried to study it more. And unfortunately, in a phase 3 trial, like the more rigorous, larger trial, it didn't quite do what they hoped. So the company dropped it. They said, we're not going to go further. It's not worth our money to put in because it's so expensive to try to do these studies, like tens of millions of dollars. And they didn't think it was going to ever pay out. So they released the patent, and so did Dr. Miles. He released the patent, and an over-the-counter company that makes probiotics called Skinesa. I don't know how you say it, Skinesa. They bought it, and now they have the spray. So it's pretty interesting. I mean, I think it's fascinating. I have a whole bunch of patients trying it right now, and we'll see. I mean, I'm a little disappointed by what the study showed because when they really put it to the test, it didn't do what they hoped. You couldn't tell the difference between the groups, but maybe sometimes the truth is that maybe it works really well for some patients. And if you mix everybody up, then you might not get a strong enough signal, but maybe there is a subgroup where it's like, hey, this is going to be really good for them. We think it's really safe. The only negative to it is that it's really expensive. It's like $130 or $120 for this box. Now that is a 90-day supply, which is great. And you spray it on every other day. But I told all my patients, I'm like, you take them up, they have a money back guarantee. I'm like, if it doesn't work, get your money back. It's a lot of money, And I will see. I mean, I've just been doing it for the last month or two, so I can't wait to kind of get some feedback in the next few months as those patients return.
Great.
Can I
Okay.
just jump in on the CAP devices? Dr. Leo, for the review, have you been in touch with the manufacturer at all and seen every journal article that is out there on wound healing plus?
We didn't talk to the manufacturer. We did like a systematic review. So we went through all the different search engines and kind of tried to pull all the papers that were available.
Okay, I think either Jing or I could help you with that because you probably want to be looking at the latest version of the device that is a grade 3 medical device in ASEAN countries. And so that would be helpful to do the full specs around.
That'd be great.
There are several. I think Dr. Chanchai, he has a couple of papers done on, I think it's the bioplasma jet on fungal infections.
Yes.
So I can probably dig a few out and send it to you. So I'm happy to email those to you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Great. Well, we're coming up at the top of the hour, and so if we don't have any other questions, I think we're going to leave it at this. I just want to thank all of our guests for coming today and sharing all of their knowledge and information. Like I mentioned before, we really just wanted to put out some more information to help people better understand some of these things that seem kind of mysterious. No, we're not telling people to do it, not do it, or whatnot. We just really want to help people. We know this comes up a lot all the time, and people are always wondering about different things. So we just wanted to add to the conversation and help people get information all in one place. We have one more question, and then we're going to wrap this up. Hafsid?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, Dr. Leo, slightly off-topic question, but I wanted to get your view on Elidel as a treatment. Is that something you use on its own, or how do you mix if you use it with Aaron? What is the best way to use them together, or to use one without the other?
Elidel, you said?
Yeah.
So the non-steroidal, the pimecrolimus or Elidel, typically what we try to do is we'll try to use the non-steroidals whenever we can, and then we would only try to use something like the Dr. Aaron's for rescue. So it would be like mostly Elidel if that's enough when you need it. And then if you're like, it's not enough, then you could potentially go to the rescue for Dr. Aarons if you needed it. That's my ideal way. And again, some people are lucky and they're like, actually, I don't need to use any of that stuff, right? I'm okay with just my non-medicine stuff, my non-prescription things. Other people are like, yeah, the Elidel's not enough for me. It's too wimpy. I put it on like it's moisturizer and it's still not enough. So they have to lean on something more. But that'd be my ideal.
Yeah, and is there a limit on Elidel of how many days in a month, or how long to use it for before you think, look, I need to stop too much of it?
There's no specific published guidelines on it, but I would say like any other medicine, I think our goal is always to try to use it sparingly when you need it, and then trying to take those longer and longer breaks as we get control. And if we find we're not able to get control, that would make me think, do we need to do bigger things? Like, do we need to think about light therapy, or do we need to, do something outside of the box to try to avoid overusing? But again, there's not like steroids in the same way, although we know a lot of people in the TSW community feel that Protopic and Elidel, tacrolimus and pimecrolimus can play a role in this too. And I don't fully understand why, because they work differently. They don't affect the blood vessels in the same way, but they do affect the immune system. So
Thank you.
All right, great. Well, thank you again for everybody for participating today. And Dr. Leo made a recording of this, so he will be sharing it with each and every one of you. And then we'll be posting our topic for our next meeting, which is in November. So thank you again and have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.